All right, welcome to Discover Your Inner Guru Week 2 Fall Round. So glad you guys are here and so excited for you guys because we're really now going to start getting into the nitty-gritty of what Guru is all about. Before we do that though, I wanted to just connect with the reboot and reset for success and just say a few things about that. If you're not finished with that entirely, that's totally fine. What's important is that you've started the process. And I think the most important step in the reboot and reset is the purge. So if you've at least done the purge and you're starting to make that a habit, because that's something that you can do often. This isn't something that you just do once. I honestly do this several times a week, and I like to do it at nighttime to clear my mind, and it helps me sleep better. So definitely at least get that done. The other stuff you can kind of work through the next couple of weeks, so don't stress about that. If you have any questions about the reboot and reset, just send me a message and I'm happy to answer that, and I can kind of continue helping you through that. So as we move into week 2, the topic for week 2 is loving what is and the skill of observation. I love teaching things from a principle-based perspective. And if we understand the principles, then I love bringing in like a skill that matches with that principle that we can then apply that principle to in everyday practical application. And so loving what is the principle. Learning what it means to be fully present in the moment and in full acceptance and love for what is in the moment. We'll talk a little bit about human nature. We'll talk a little bit about, we'll go into the skill of observation, which is to me one of the most powerful tools that I have learned in my journey of healing and cultivating more mental wellness and emotional wellness that I have ever experienced or discovered. And so I'm super excited. This is going to be good. We've got a few more people that are going to join us, but I think we'll just go ahead and move on. So this program has been in the works for a couple years now. I've been getting lots of downloads and just feeling this urgency to teach people what it means to get in the driver's seat of their own healing journey, what it means to claim their power when it comes to their life, right? And I spent many years in traditional personal development world where I was speaking and facilitating seminars that had anywhere up to 600 people attending. And I found that, well, I want to be careful what I say because it's never my intention to disregard or throw anyone under the bus, because I feel like there's a lot of people that were helped and blessed through those. But what I found was there was this guru mentality that was being fostered. And so hundreds of people were listening to whoever was on stage and idolizing them and sort of hero worshiping and saying, I want their life. I want to be just like them. Well, the reality is you aren't just like them. Each person has their own journey and their own unique situation and background and perspective and personality profile, right? And so how can you ever possibly be just like that person on stage, right? So there was this guru mentality that I discovered, like, I don't want that. I don't want those who take my classes, those who work with me on an individual basis. I don't want them to look to me for their answers. I would love to be a guide. That's why I call myself a mindfulness guide, because I don't like the word coach. It's a little intense for me. And I don't like the word guru because I don't have all the answers. I just have answers that I discovered throughout my life, throughout my experience. And I've been hungry and thirsty for that knowledge, and I've done the work for many, many years. But I'm just teaching it from my perspective. And that's just one perspective. But if I can give you some principles and skills that are based in true principles, right? That are based in truth, that are founded in truth, and then you can adapt that in your own way, you know, from your own perspective. But my ultimate goal is that people become independent of me. I know it's not good business, but I don't necessarily want people, you know, forever and ever and ever always dependent on me. I don't mind if they come to me over and over again, because I love seeing them and I love having those friendships and those connections. But I want to ultimately see people that I work with take personal responsibility and to start making connections on their own, and then going out and paying it forward. Guys, we live in an interesting time, right? It's a tough world. It's there's so many cool things happening, and on the yin and yang of it is, you know, there's some really tough things happening too, and it's tumultuous. There's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of unrest. And so in addition to what issues we're already dealing with within ourselves, the outside world is really chaotic. And so how do we ultimately navigate this world? How do we ultimately learn to find joy and happiness and peace? And what does that look like in a practical, everyday application sense, if that makes sense? And so, Guru, that's what this is about. It's about helping you figure that out, and not in an ethereal sort of conceptual perspective, but actually here's some practical application tools that will help you navigate that and cultivate these skills and learn to master your emotions. All right, so as you're learning these skills, there's sort of a foundation that I want to build here with you guys. And before we do that, I want to talk about human nature a little bit. Human nature is fascinating, isn't it? Science teaches us that we're wired a certain way. You know, we've got the fight or flight, the lower brain, that whenever we perceive that we're in danger, we have all kinds of things happen. Our brain shuts off, our heart rate goes up, we breathe more heavily, and our body might tense up and go into like fight or flight, whatever that might look like for you as an individual. And then, you know, there's the religious perspective, and if you're not religious, that's okay. I respect you. But there's this concept of, you know, we come to Earth to prove ourselves, or to get a body and to overcome the natural man or woman. And what does that even mean, right? And so there's this mortal earthly part of us that is wired a certain way. And sometimes that wiring doesn't necessarily honor the highest good. And then there's the part of us who I call our higher selves, right? Or our divine selves, that know who we are, inherently know exactly who we are and where we came from, and has connection and access to all that we need, all the truths that we need to fulfill our purpose, right? Our divine eternal purpose. And so I personally believe that this isn't just our one chance to live a life. You know, I believe that each of us has this inherent desire to create, to improve, to grow and progress. And we get uncomfortable, or we get upset, or we get depressed or sad or angry even if we feel stuck, if we feel like we're held back from that progression. And so that's because I believe we're divine beings who know exactly where we want to be and where we want to go, and the possibilities of that, and that we find joy and fulfillment in progress, in movement. And so this process of overcoming the natural man or woman, the process of mastering, having respect for human nature, and an understanding of it and a love for it, can allow us to learn from it and overcome it, if that makes sense. So here's some things that come up in human nature a lot that I find can hold us back sometimes. It's very human nature to want to make sense of everything. You know, a problem comes in our way, and the first instinct for a lot of people is to fix it, or to try to figure out why. Like, why is this happening to me? Or why is, you know, whatever it is going on, right? And do you know what's interesting? When that happens, and it's not a bad thing that we're trying to figure out why, because I mean, it's normal, and we have a desire to learn, right? but we're skipping the part of being really present in the moment, right? We're kind of skipping over that and trying to go and get busy figuring it out rather than just really be present with that. And so then there's this part of us that as we're trying to make sense of everything, sometimes shame and judgment or expectation come into play here, right? We might find that we're disappointed in something that happened because we had an expectation of a specific outcome. We tend to maybe shame or judge something because maybe it means something about us, right? Okay, so for many, many years, I was sick, right, with chronic illness. I'm trying to remember how much I've told you already of my story, but there were many times when I would just give in to resignation because of the shame and judgment component. Because the way I was raised was, if you didn't get certain results, then you were bad, or you did something wrong, or you didn't do enough. And so as I was sitting in this physical pain that I was experiencing, and no doctors were able to figure me out, and I wasn't able to get any results, I was always in this doing mode. And I can't remember if I talked about this last week, but this, I think of this metaphor of a bowl of muddy water. My friend Bob Cattell, he's one of those mentors that came into my life that just a few things that he said absolutely changed my life. And he said to me, Kara, what if life were more about unfolding rather than molding? And he said, what would you do with if you had a bowl of muddy water and you wanted it to get clean, what would it look like? Like, how would you do that? How would you get it clear? And I think I already talked about this last week, if I remember right. And my instinct was to boil it, because I was in a mindset of, I have to get in there and I have to do something drastic in order to fix it. And the solution really is to let it sit. Give it time for the dust to settle, and eventually the water will clear out, right? And so my natural woman was in this shame or judgment. I have to do something. If I'm not getting results, then I'm not doing enough, or I'm doing the wrong things, or I'm not being disciplined enough. And it just sent me in circles. It sent me running on the hamster wheel faster and more intensely, and I was getting worn out more quickly and more profoundly. This shame is really interesting. I see it as a very, very much a poison. And I believe, because I'm very much believe in a heaven, and I very much believe in God, and I believe in Jesus, and I believe in Satan. And I believe that there are adversaries, energies that are trying to hold us back or to sabotage our efforts. And I believe that shame is one of his greatest tools to poison us. It keeps us from being fully in the present moment. It warps our perspective of what's actually true. And we're going to talk more about that later, about what feels real versus what is actually true. And it disconnects us from our inherent value and worth. So as long as we are distracted from what's really happening, what's actually true in the present moment, then we stay damned. We lack the ability to progress, to create what we want to create, or to create different results than we've already been creating. And so as we're learning the skill of observation, shame is one of those things that we're going to learn how to set aside. We're going to say, thank you so much, we love you anyway, but we're not doing that. This is not what we're going to do. And we're going to check shame at the door. And that's not always easy to do, especially if your programming tells you that has to be there, right? And so it may take some time for that shame and judgment to sit on the back seat. Brene Brown, I don't know if anyone's familiar with her, but she's one of my favorite go-to people in the mindfulness world. And she says that shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. Shame corrodes the very part of us that believes that we are capable of change. So it really does keep us stuck. And shame can come in many forms. It can come in the, oh, I'm so bad, I'm so wicked, or I'm dumb or stupid or whatever. It can also be more subtle, right? It also can be just sort of a, well, this must mean something about me if this isn't happening. And that's more shame / judgment, right? So as we learn to disconnect from shame, which is so human nature and so normal and natural, but really does hold us back from progressing, we can give ourselves permission to step into this space of observation free of shame or judgment. And you guys, I'm telling you, observation free of shame and judgment is a magical land. It's so cool. It's like suddenly all the pressure comes off to fix anything. There's no, there's no timeline. It just is. It's just like, all right, so I'm going to give myself permission to step inside maybe this observation chamber, like maybe you were in a science lab or something and you're just there to learn. It's a space of learning. It's a space of open perspective where anything is possible, right? And it's also a space of truth and transparency and honesty, right? When that shame and judgment is out of there, when that need to try to make sense or fix or hurry up and get rid of this discomfort gets, if we can learn to embrace the discomfort of what is in the moment. And that's an interesting thing, right? That's another human nature thing where it's like we're so adverse to discomfort because the fight or flight part of our brain goes, we're in danger, and so human nature says we have to get out of danger really fast. But as you discover your inner guru and you claim your power, you have the ability to say, no, I'm not actually in danger. I just feel uncomfortable. And there's power in discomfort. There's power in that vulnerability. And I'm going to repeat this a lot because it's just one of those really basic things that I want to really have written upon your hearts and to bring home for you in your minds and in your hearts, that vulnerability is power. Because vulnerability opens you to humility. And when you're humble, you're teachable. And when you're teachable, you learn things. And as cliche as it might sound, knowledge is power. It's perspective. It allows you to see things as they really are, and therefore gives you the information and the data that you need to make the changes that you would like to make, or to consciously react and respond the way you choose, in a way that you believe will serve and honor the highest good, what I call the highest good of all. So welcome to the magical land of observation, free of shame or judgment. And I invite you to some patience, to some offering yourself some grace throughout this process, because for some of you, it definitely was for me in the beginning, it's going to feel bumpy. It's going to feel awkward to really learn what it means to be still and present and in full love and acceptance for what is in the present moment. Because the alternative is a lot of work. It's so much more work than just surrendering to what is. I promise you. Byron Katie is another one of my favorites. I highly recommend her book called Loving What Is, and she also has a really great practical application approach to mindfulness and this idea of just loving things as they are in the moment. And she says, this is one of my favorite quotes from her. She says, I am a lover of what is, Not because I'm a religious person, or excuse me, a spiritual person, but because it hurts when I argue with reality. It's so true though. You know, we put so much energy and effort into arguing with what actually is, or trying to convince ourselves that it's different than it is, or we're distracted with all the shame and judgment because we're trying to figure out what it means about us, right? Or we're so uncomfortable that we're trying to just scramble out of the feeling of the discomfort. But what we're really doing is we're intensifying the discomfort. We're avoiding it. We're avoiding the solution, which is love, is really coming to a space of love and just stop squirming. Relax into it. You're going to hear me say this a lot. Learning how to just relax into it and breathe into it. So as you step into this sort of I don't know, it's a magical land, right? You're stepping into observation, but it's like I was saying before, it's like this science lab of learning, yeah? And you're just there to learn, and you're just seeing the possibilities, and you're observing what's happening and what isn't happening. You're observing how your body's responding. You're observing your emotions and your reactions and the words that you're saying and the thoughts that are going through your mind. And it's really, really amazing what you learn in this space. It's really amazing how suddenly giving yourself permission to observe free of that shame or judgment without the pressure to fix it brings instantaneous peace. You guys, I'm telling you, it's a magical land. But and it's a place where you are in charge, where you are at full choice. Okay? And as you feel the shame and judgment creep in, because it will, observe that. But the moment that you observe it and say, oh, shame and judgment, I see you, I feel you, I love you, it's okay. I love you no matter what. I know that we're reprogramming and rewiring the brain here, so we're gonna have some patience here with you. But you're not in charge, right? So the minute you acknowledge that it's there, you love it, and you just remind it, you're not in charge here, I'm in charge, my higher self is in charge here, then the energy shifts. It just does, and it's a magical, wonderful thing. So there's some on the course page, there are 3 documents that I have on there, and I'm unable to do screen sharing today. I apologize. I'm in my new office. Well, I'm actually borrowing someone else's office right now because my office isn't put together, but I was not able to get the Wi-Fi password in time for this to start. So my computer, I'm using my phone right now. Anyway, so I can't screen share, but that's okay. There's 3 pages that you can look up, and as you're listening to this video, and a lot of you that aren't on here anyway, you can pull up the file. The first one is practicing the skill of observation, a practical application approach to managing your emotions and reactions to stress. So this is basically, those of you that like systems, those of you that like structure, I've put this skill of observation, this magical land and space of observation free of shame or judgment, and I've put it down on paper and kind of broke it down for you. And again, this can be applied in any way that works for you, and not, you don't necessarily do all of the steps, and this process in each given moment can take you anywhere from 30 seconds to 30 minutes, depending on the time that you have. And as you get better at this process, you'll get faster, and it'll become more automatic. But in the beginning, it may take a little bit more time to just wrap your brain and your heart around it, and just be patient with yourself. It's okay. And so I'm going to walk you through practicing the skill of observation. And I'm going to invite you actually to take a moment, and I'm going to be quiet for just a minute so that you can ponder with yourself. Take a moment and connect with something that's been bothering you lately. okay, that's fresh on your mind. This is not about digging up dirt that is in our subconscious mind. This is just what's already on the surface, what's been on the surface for you this morning. What have you been feeling anxiety in your heart? Have you been feeling an unrest this morning? And maybe you're not really sure what that is. Or maybe it's really obvious. Maybe you're upset with someone. Maybe you had an interaction that was upsetting and you're still ruminating on that. So I invite you to just take a moment and connect with what that is before we move forward. Okay, and as that becomes clear for you, I'm going to walk you through this process and what this gets to look like. So number one, stop and breathe. All right, it's also human nature for us to move on with our lives regardless of how we're feeling. That was totally my MO, was there's no time for this right now, right? So part of discovering your inner guru and taking the driver's seat is you are in the driver's seat and you can push the brake pedal anytime you choose and put your car in park, right? That's totally your choice. Nobody else gets to decide whether you have to be somewhere or do something. You are the one that always are in choice. So stop and breathe. Give yourself a timeout. This is calming down the parasympathetic nervous system. You're telling yourself, okay, even though I'm feeling like I'm in danger here, or even though I'm experiencing a lot of discomfort, I'm not actually in danger. And vulnerability leads to power, right? Because knowledge is power. And so I keep getting texts on my phone and it's totally distracting me. I apologize. So breathe, stop and breathe. Calm down that parasympathetic nervous system. And I really love breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth because I feel like it helps me get a deeper, more connected breath when I go through the nose because it forces me to go slower. And just breathe. Oh, and it feels so good. And just connect with, okay, just breathing, I feel better. I'm getting oxygen to the brain. And so on a practical level, you're getting the oxygen to the brain so that you can think more clearly. And out. All right. And then as I'm taking in the oxygen, I'm remembering, I have on the paper here that when you pull this up, it says that taking in oxygen is the simplest way to keep the spirit connected to the body and stay present, right? The spirit likes to leave the body a lot when we're in danger or we're in discomfort. And so bringing the spirit and body, all those parts of you, fully integrated in the present moment, right here, right now, with the breath, okay? And then you feel it. Let yourself feel it. What are you feeling? What emotions are coming up for you? Take a moment and really connect with that. I will be quiet for a moment and allow you to connect with that. If you're more kinesthetic, you can actually hold your heart and keep breathing as you're connecting with this. And as you're connecting to what you're feeling, it might be helpful to identify where it is in your body. I find that this is more difficult for people who are more of a thinkers, analytical thinkers. So if you could imagine that it was in anywhere part of your body, where would it be? Or where do you actually feel tension in your body? Okay, so go ahead and connect with that. Where are you feeling tension in your body? In through the nose and out through the mouth. Okay, so now you're more aware of what you're feeling. You kind of know where it is in your body. And now I invite you to give yourself permission to really feel it. Give yourself permission to be fully present with it. Cry if you need to. If you're angry, you know, one of my favorite things, I have a son, he's 11, and he has some really strong, he's very sensitive, and his sensory issues are through the roof. And so he feels a lot of things a lot. And oftentimes when it finally comes out and is expressed, it's in rage and anger. And so one of my favorite things to do is to give him a plastic bag to tear and rip apart and just destroy. And it's like his favorite thing to do. He's like, Mom, where's the plastic bags? And now he knows where to find them and that he can do it himself, and I don't have to always prompt him. But if you need to do something, hit something without hurting anything or anyone or yourself, if you need to grab a pillow around your head and scream into the pillow, whatever it might be, feel it. And I'm going to give you a moment to do that. And again, it's difficult to give you all the time that you need in this kind of a setting. And so if I move on too quickly, just remember to honor that when we're done. So this is something I just cannot stress enough. Until you feel it, until you really allow it to be expressed in whatever way honors you, whether it's through writing, whether it's through physical activity, whether it's through sobbing your guts out or just crying a little or verbally expressing the emotions out loud, whatever that might be, or just sitting with it, whatever that looks like, until you really do that, until you really honor those feelings, regardless of whether they're based in truth. And I'm going to say that again, regardless, because most often they aren't based in truth, but they feel real. They are real to us. And so until we acknowledge what feels real and we allow it to be fully expressed and fully felt, we're going to be held back from seeing what's actually true. We can't move on to the next step. And if we can't see what's really true, then we can't gather the information we need to move forward with a different perspective or different actions or whatever it might be. And so feel it. Really, really feel it. And this is very counterintuitive for a lot of people, because in many cultures, in family cultures, religious cultures, whatever, we are programmed and taught to put on a happy face, to pretend like nothing's wrong, to move on, suck it up, buttercup, right? Pull up your big girl panties, whatever that phrase is, like be a man, quit your crying, men don't cry, right? All of that programming, all of those beliefs that are so toxic and unhealthy, let yourself feel it. It's important. And it's wonderful. God gave us these bodies and he gave us lots of ways to release emotions and energy. Crying is one of those ways. Laughing is one of those ways. Exercise is one of those ways. Sex is one of those ways. There's lots and lots of ways that he gives us to move emotion out of our body so that our body can be a continuous flow of repairing and restoring itself to help us get unstuck physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's so, so vital that you're feeling it. All right, so that's step one, is to stop and breathe and to feel it in practicing the skill of observation. Step two is to connect to what is true. All right, so once we felt it, and you will feel, some of you might be feeling it right now, you'll start to feel like, oh, okay, I'm noticing that I'm less tense. I've cried it out and I'm kind of coming down to more of a homeostasis and more of a balance and harmony, and I'm feeling calmer. It doesn't necessarily mean that the problem is resolved. It doesn't necessarily mean that we feel complete, but we might feel calm enough and ready to actually consider a new perspective, right? And so as we're considering a new perspective, we're going to try to connect to what is true. And so there's a distinction here that gets to be made. What feels real isn't necessarily true. This is something I tell my kids and my students a lot, and I'm going to say this again. What feels uncomfortable, or let's see, what feels good isn't necessarily right and true. What feels uncomfortable isn't necessarily bad and wrong. And so as you're learning to overcome the natural man or woman, as you're learning to connect with, create that distinction between what feels real versus what's actually true, it takes practice, and it takes some real conscious observation in the magical land of observation to really create and get clear on those distinctions. Okay, so this is what feels real, and the best way to distinguish between the two is to first feel what's real and let it move, right? And that's kind of what you did with the reboot and reset, is you're clearing the clutter. You're allowing the energy that really isn't serving you in making progress or seeing what's truth and having the real clear perspective. You're allowing that to move. You're cleaning your kitchen, right? So that you can create a gourmet meal. All right. So what feels real is not necessarily true. So I asked myself, I'm going to acknowledge, and I'm going to ask myself, can I be absolutely 100% certain that this is true? For example, say I get in an argument with my husband, and this is something money is one of those big things that comes up in marriage a lot, right? So finances has been one of those things in my marriage. And so for many, many years, I held a lot of beliefs towards my husband. Some of them were, he doesn't care enough about me and my kids to provide for me. Or he doesn't, just so you know, he knows that I'm talking about this, so I'm not talking behind his back. He's amazing, and we've resolved a lot of these things. But for many years, I believed that he was the enemy, that I was a victim to his choices, and that it was all his fault, right? And so that felt real, and there was a lot of emotions that came with that. And as I've learned to move those emotions, and I've been able to really connect, okay, Kara, what can you be absolutely 100% certain that it's true that he doesn't care? And the truth is, he cares so much, right? And as I've been able to connect to those truths, then that victimhood and that blame and those blocks or those voids or those, that yucky energy between us, keeping us from really connecting with each other on the level that we are capable of and need to in order to have a successful marriage, that energy has gone away. And I've been able to really connect with what's really true. And it's a powerful thing. And so you ask yourself, well, can I be 100% certain without a doubt that this is true? The circumstances, the feelings, the thoughts, the beliefs that I'm having, is this true? If you cannot say yes without hesitation, then it's not probably true. And really connect with, is it true right now, in this moment? It may have been true in the past, and it may possibly come true in the future, but is it true right here, right now, in this present moment? I've got kids who have been so blessed to have inherited my brain wiring, and with that comes a natural tendency to experience anxiety on a regular basis. And so I have this cute boy who came to me just terrified about something, and I don't even remember what it was, but I just remember him saying, "Mom," he was just really upset. And sometimes he doesn't like it when I ask this, and so it's very important that you first acknowledge, okay, how does that feel, right? Because that's the first step, is to breathe. I told him to breathe. All right, how's that feeling right now? How does that feel for you? And I try not to use the words, how does that make you feel? Or how does that make me feel? Because Nothing can make me feel. Other people can't make me feel a way. It's all a certain way. It's always my choice, right? So I try to be very clear in the words that I use with myself and with my kids. So how does that feel? I'm so sorry. Where do you feel it in your body? Oh man, that's rough, buddy. You know, and I just felt it with him first, but then eventually, then I get to say, all right, is this happening right now? Well, no. Well, then it's not true. And I try not to use the word, then it's not real. Because that if he's still working through some of those emotions that feel real to him, that can be really invalidating and hurtful to somebody if they're not ready yet, if they haven't fully felt and let that emotion move. So is that true? Okay, if it's not happening right now, right here, right now, then it's not true, right? Oh, you know, and they kind of, it clicks, you know, and they go, oh, okay. And then that just brings everything down and they can calm down and go, okay. And then I say, all right, what are you dealing with right here, right now? Focus on what you have control over. Okay, so number 2 is connect to what is true. Okay, and then part of that is also acknowledging what isn't true, right? So you kind of create 2 categories where you've got 1 and you've got 2 where, okay, this is what I can be absolutely certain is absolutely true, and this is what I know isn't true. And you might even write it down if you have time to do that, or just make a mental list of those 2 categories. And then the third step in observation is make a conscious decision of reaction. Okay, because you are your own guru. You are in the driver's seat of your healing journey. So take responsibility, right? You felt it. You've acknowledged what feels real versus what is true. Okay, and now you have some information. You have some data to work with to move forward, to make a conscious decision of how you will react. Okay, Mila is saying, I love that instead of saying, oops, where did it go? I lost you. I want to read your comment, but I'm not seeing it here. Oh, here it is. Mila says, I love that instead of saying it's not real, my son has fears and nightmares of zombies. And this morning I said, but remember they are not real. I love the switch to not true. I understand because many things feel real to me too. Yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad. It makes a difference. And one of the best things, and this is not necessarily a guru thing, but one of the best things you can do for your children in building that relationship of trust is hearing them and really acknowledging from their perspective how they're feeling. And that responds directly to ourselves. When you're dealing with yourself, consider that there's a lot of inner children in you at different ages that need to be heard and acknowledged. Just like you would want to acknowledge and hear your children and develop that relationship of trust with them, you'll want to develop that relationship of trust with yourself. And really using the words and really honoring your inner children as you're working through these emotions. Because some triggers that come up for you, some emotions that come up for you are old. And they go way back to when you were really little, when your brain was still developing. And so your ability to perceive what was actually truth is very limited when your brain is still developing, right? Well, even when you're an adult, because we're emotional beings and we get caught up in the emotion of things. So yes, that distinction is very important. Okay, so you're making a conscious decision of reaction. And this would be, here are your choices. Either you're going to react in acceptance and love for what is, or you're going to shame and judge it. You might choose resentment and anger, or fear, or suppression, or you can consciously choose to feel it, to see it, to make a different choice. This is the part where I love the idea of making a choice for the future. When I was young, I made a conscious choice of the kind of man I was going to marry. And it was really important to me that I married a man who loved God and was living a life that was good and pure. And I made that decision when I was really, really young. And even though I had some close calls with some individuals that would have would have taken me on a very different path. I found that pure, good man who is amazing. And so like, I'm thinking, okay, because I'm human, I'm having respect for the fact that I know my brain is wired a certain way. I know I kind of have a programming of responding this particular way in this particular circumstance. So because I know and respect that it takes time for my brain and my body to create new neural pathways, new patterns and habits of being, I get to be proactively in charge of creating those new neural pathways. But I also have respect that it's likely that I'm going to respond this way again in the future. And so I might make a conscious reaction of how I'll respond next time, because your reaction may have already happened. See? Your reaction to a certain situation happened, and so you were triggered, and then you go into observation. And so when I'm saying make a conscious decision of reaction, it's more of a, okay, how am I going to show up for myself next time this trigger comes up for me? Next time I feel these emotions, am I going to suppress them? Am I going to bottle them up? Am I going to blame someone else and go into victimhood? Or am I going to take responsibility for what I'm feeling? Am I going to honor myself and take the time to feel it? Am I going to choose love? Am I going to choose patience and letting go of that shame and judgment? So you get to decide what's going to be my reaction in the future. And, or you might say, okay, how am I going to show up for myself right now? Because it may be a really big trigger. It may be something that's really sending you into a tailspin of emotions. And it might be, your body might be responding in a way that's really like, maybe you're suddenly really exhausted physically. Or maybe like for me, I'm very much physically respond to my emotions. And so I might be feeling physical pain or discomfort. And so instead of soldiering on with my day, I might make a conscious reaction to go take a nap if I have the flexibility to do that. Or I might give myself permission to just take it a little easier, to move a little bit slower and to be kinder to myself throughout the day. Or I might make a conscious choice of reaction to say, okay, this happened. I'm not feeling completely resolved with this, so I'm going to make a conscious choice of reaction to observe this throughout the rest of my day. I hope I'm making sense with that. Let me know if you have any questions. So step 3 is to make a conscious reaction. Okay. How are you going to choose to show up for yourself differently? Remember, it's all about, part of learning to discover and own your inner guru is to help yourself hop out of the hamster wheel of life, right? That hamster wheel of habitual patterns of behavior, of thinking, and of being that aren't serving you, that are exhausting you and wearing you out and are holding you back from really creating what you want to create. And so it's like, okay, I'm making a conscious choice to step out of the hamster wheel and do something different, okay? And then step 4 is connect to inspired thought and take conscious action. So this is where I might be like, okay, and this is a step that's kind of optional, I find, because I don't always have time to do that. But if I have the time and the luxury to actually be still and really present, I might go, okay, I have this information. I know it's truth. And I know that next time I'm going to show up for myself this way. Step 4 might be your conscious reaction of, okay, now I'm going to make a conscious choice to sit and listen to my next step. So I'm going to ask for inspiration, whether it's from God, whether it's from your higher self, whether it's from your spirit guides, whether it's from the universe, whatever you understand and works within your realm of a belief system. This is when you connect to inspired thought, to inspired direction. Personal revelation would be another word for it. And then write it down if you have the ability to do that. Find a way to remember that and make a commitment to act upon it. So this is what I call practicing the skill of observation. And you don't have to get it perfect. This is all new for some of you. And so I invite you to just focus on steps 1, 2, and 3, more than anything. Yeah. And that inspired thought, as you become clear, as that muddy water begins to settle and the water becomes more clear and you get the information that you need, it'll become really natural. And the flow of inspiration will come sometimes when you're working. I get a lot of inspiration even when I'm changing a poopy diaper, the inspiration just flows because you become more clear. And what's so beautiful about this space of observation and so magical is you don't have to stop your whole life. You don't have to say, okay, I will now meditate for 2 hours. It isn't like that because it's not practical. We have to live our lives. We have temporal needs and things that need to be taken care of. We have children, some of us. We have jobs. We have people counting on us. And so the beauty of this is this goes with you wherever you want it to go. And it can take, again, anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on what you choose and the time that you have available to you. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it, the quicker it'll be. And it also depends upon how deep the trigger is. I'm personally still processing some really deep childhood trauma that came up for me when I was late to the Q&A last week. And I'm still observing. It's still moving and processing from my body. And I'm okay with that because I can go on with my life and still be observing and still be connected with that. When it was first a trigger, it was the next morning, Friday morning, and I had to go teach day 2 of a Reiki class. And I had to take some time that morning to really bring my spirit back into my body, allow myself to really feel some things. And that took me 10, 15 minutes to do that. I actually had a friend that even helped support me through that. And so depending on the trigger, that can also determine the length of time that it takes for things to move. It's so really cool though to see as I get better at this, to just so many people have no idea that I'm even processing, that I'm even in observation, that I'm even practicing mindfulness in my mind and in my heart. And I'm just going about my day and helping other people and doing my thing. So it's really cool. All right, so there's a couple more as we're winding down. There's a couple of other pages or files that I've given you guys to help you understand this space of observation better. And so one of them I'm calling the observation guide sheet. And this is just possible things for you to observe and document and be specific as you can. So I'm just going to go through this list for you. So what kind of things would you observe, basically, right? Anytime you're experiencing negative emotions, or even positive emotions for that matter, right? But really specifically those things that might hold you back from thinking clearly, from functioning from a space of love and flow. Observe that emotion. Be specific with what those emotions are. Observe where you feel the emotion in your body, which is, we've already mentioned that. How is it affecting your body? Are you tense? Are you breathing heavily and high and have a shortness of breath? Do you have a headache? Are you suddenly feeling tired and sluggish, exhausted? Whatever that might be specific. The next idea is observe feelings that organically come in the situations they are connected to. So for example, all right, I'm feeling really anxious right now. All right, what's been happening? What did I just do? Who did I just talk to? Right? And you're just gathering data. All right. And it's mental mostly, because who has the time to write everything down all the time? Some people do, but it's just mental notes, right? Become more conscious and aware of your thoughts and your belief patterns. Okay, so I'm feeling this way. I noticed who I was reacting with, the circumstances. This happened before? Yeah, actually, this has happened before, come to think of it. And you start to recognize patterns, thoughts and beliefs that might be coming in your mind. My husband doesn't care about me, right? So some things that come up in your mind are, oh, that person was rude, or I am not good enough, I'll never be good enough, or just try to identify any thoughts or belief patterns that are connected with those emotions and those triggers. Here's some other things. Observe your responses and reactions in any given situation. What words are you coming out of your mind, out of your mouth? Are you responding in fight or flight? Are you responding in anger, or are you bottling things up? Are you holding up? Are you close shutting down? Like if someone criticized you, or is that holding you back from standing tall in who you are? Or do you shrink and clam up and adopt more beliefs about how you're not heard or you're not important or whatever that might be? So notice your emotional, like your gut reactions. What was your gut reaction? You know, there's times when I still have triggers, and if I might suddenly just yell at my kids, you know, because like the volcano erupts and I may not have been present and aware enough to really understand that something was building. And then so I observe after the fact. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I just totally yelled at you guys. And I'm really verbal with my kids so that they can hear my process and they can learn from me. It's actually really cool, and it diffuses the tension. And I'll say, guys, I'm sorry, I just yelled at you. I'm feeling really mad at you guys right now, and I'm not really sure why, you know? And then they suddenly don't feel attacked. They suddenly don't feel like there's something wrong with them. They just know, oh, mom's having a rough day. And so I observe those things really verbally sometimes. All right, notice how your body responds in stressful situations. And we've kind of already, where you feel it in your body, or how is your body currently responding, if that makes sense. Pay attention to the words you're using. What are your habits? How are your habits changing? For example, if you have a trigger and you're feeling all these emotions, do you suddenly feel an urge to go eat junk food? Do you suddenly feel an urge to go and zone out on Netflix and binge? Do you suddenly feel an urge to put off work that needs to be done? Or you know, just things like that, like habits, routines that might start to change because of those triggers. So those are some things you can start observing. Oh, that's interesting. I don't feel like working out today because I'm just too tired. But really, there's something emotional there, right? Okay. Observe how you might be judgmental towards others or towards yourself. Observe maybe the victimhood patterns of like how you're blaming or maybe excuses that you're making. Just any kind of action or reaction to any given situation. You're observing your motivation. Wow, I'm acting this way. What am I motivated by? Am I motivated by love right now? Or am I motivated by fear or anger or resentment or hurt, whatever it might be? Like, where is my perception coming from? Am I coming from a place of love and clarity, or am I in fear and resentment and anger? So these are all some things that you can observe. Okay. All right. So that's that. And then the third file I'm giving you these are some words and phrases that might invite you or support you into shifting into this magical land of observation and love. Okay. Giving permission for the shame and judgment to go. So these are some phrases that you can print this off and you can carry it around in your wallet or in your purse or whatever as a guide to have with you. You might put it on your mirror and have it around the house so that you can see it readily. So here are some things that you can say to yourself or to others to help shift into observation. What I do, feel, say, or believe is not who I am or a reflection of my value and worth. How other people interact with me is not a reflection of who I am or my worth and value. What is happening right now just is, and it doesn't mean anything about me. You see how that can shift the energy into just, all right, we're observing now. And you might just say the words, all right, we're observing now. Yeah. Shame and judgment. I love you. You're not allowed in this space with me right now. Here's some other words you can say. I am in charge of me. Okay. I'm in the driver's seat. Nobody else gets to determine how I respond or how I behave or how I think about myself. I am in charge of me. I allow others their experience. This is really powerful. So these last two phrases are phrases that kind of disconnect you from the codependency energy of other people's behavior and words and things like that, determining your value or your level of happiness. Yeah. Okay. So we're disconnecting from that codependency. We're allowing other people to have their experience. You're just claiming responsibility that you're in charge of yourself, right? All right, just a few more here and we'll wrap things up. I choose how I get to react to my feelings about what I'm experiencing. Oh, and this one's my favorite because this really helps you get into this magical space, because observation is possibility. It's like, all right, what do I get to learn right now? Okay, so it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'm feeling this and this and this. Huh, curious, fascinating. Isn't this all just so fascinating, right? So you're in an energy of curiosity and fascination and exploration rather than judgment or having to fix it. It's so cool. So cool, right? All right. Or you can say, I'm experiencing this emotion. I'm feeling it here in my body because such and such and such just happened. So I'm actually just observing what actually happened rather than trying to make a judgment right away. So I'm experiencing this sadness because I got a phone call from so-and-so and they told me this and this and this. Okay. And that's where you kind of start your observation off with. Here's a few more. My feelings are important. It doesn't matter if they're true or based in truth. What matters is they feel real to you and they are important to be acknowledged. Yeah. And then the last one is, I love learning from my experiences. I love it. It's so exciting. It's so fun. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but I love learning because I love growth. Right? And after a while, you guys, you'll be kind of become addicted to growth and learning. It's so much more fun. It's just like, oh, wow, what do I get to learn now? Yeah, so I'm feeling discomfort. I'm feeling vulnerable. Ooh, it must mean I get to learn something. How cool is that, right? All right, guys, so we're out of time. Welcome to the magical land of observation. I want to read the comments here in the chat before we move on. Okay. Yeah, Mila, consistency, I don't see it as a problem. It just means that you're new at it and you're just learning a new skill. And so I love that you're aware of it and you're conscious of it, and just keep going, and it will become more automatic and it will become more consistent over time. It just takes time and just consciously noticing. Yes, so it's not necessarily a worksheet, Mila. It's it's going to be week 2, Guru. All the files are in the modules there for week 2. So all 3 of these are separate pages that you can print off and have available to you. Okay, Grace, you're going to have to log in to the Guru, and I'll help you with that after class. I'll connect with you right after we stop here and help you figure that out, okay? All right, you guys, so welcome to the magical land of observation free of shame or judgment. Your homework for this week is to, as you feel you need to finish the reboot and reset, but also just enter the space of observation. Use the sheets that are in the modules of week 2 to help you remember the steps to the skill of observation, to know the questions to ask or the statements to tell yourself to help you shift in, to know the things to observe. And on Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, we will be doing our Q&A. And so come up with questions. If you have questions, make sure you send them to me before the Q&A so that we're ready to go. Be thinking about what you want to discuss on that. And have fun with this, you guys. I'm excited to celebrate with you and see how differently you're seeing and feeling life, maybe just on the very level of just experiencing more peace and relaxation and just openness, because the pressure is off now. The pressure is off for you to get it right. The pressure is off for you to shame your mistakes, because mistakes are learning and it's exciting, right? We're just a bunch of toddlers running around on earth learning how to walk, you guys. And so celebrate yourselves like God would celebrate us, or like as a parent you would celebrate your toddler. And just take that pressure off of having to get it right all the time or messing up, and just see what you can learn. It's a magical place, and I'm so excited for you guys to discover this with me. And we will see you on Thursday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.